the 2021 UN South Asia Forum on Business and Human Rights. This is the session titled Rajasthan Natural Stone Industry. I'm Prabina Shrestha from Q Design, and I will be your technical facilitator for today. Both the chat function and Q&A will be on. So if you have any questions for the speakers, please use the Q&A function. Please note that the session today is recorded. If you have any questions about Zoom or require technical assistance, please feel free to privately message me, TF Prabina Shrestha, for help using the chat box. I will now hand over to Krishnendu Mukherjee. Krishnendu, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry about the delay in starting. My name is Krishnendu Mukherjee, and I'm a barrister and Indian advocate, practicing between both countries, specializing in business and human rights, and hopefully you can see and hear me clearly. The aim of this side event is to really introduce the issues involved with the Rajasthan sandstone industry, not simply because of the issues in the sandstone industry itself, but really the sandstone industry is illustrative of many other industries in the South Asian context, where there are widespread gross human rights violations and environmental violations, and a lack of enforcement of laws, and most importantly, access to justice to rights holders. The pandemic has really shown that it is the most marginalized and vulnerable people in the world who face its worst effects through loss of work, through re-immigration, and because of the lack of any individual or state safety net. And it creates, as we've seen, a gross humanitarian crisis. In the Rajasthan sandstone industry, this has been exacerbated by the susceptibility to COVID-19 due to the weakening of lungs caused by occupational exposure to silica dust. We need to do better. If the Rajasthan sandstone industry is a hornbill in the rainforest of the post-pandemic world, it requires business, civil society, and the state to work together to try to fix these problems. This much we know, although we may not know or leave aside agree on how exactly to do it. We have hopefully 3 speakers today. We have Joshita Nag, who is stepping in at the last minute for Dr. Ranashen Gupta, who is managing partner of Mines Labour Protection Campaign. Joshita will explain further, but MLPC, Mines Labour Protection Campaign, is an organization that has been campaigning on behalf of mine workers since 2007. We're supposed to have Elaine Mitchell-Hill, who's business and human rights lead at Marshalls PLC, to give business perspectives, especially in relation to a transnational company that works in relation to Rajasthan. And we have Mr. Justice G.K. Vyas, who is chairperson of the Rajasthan State Human Rights Commission, recently in post, who will give some of the state's perspectives. As Prabina has said, for those who, by this time, I'm sure all of you are very familiar with Zoom, will realize that you are muted, your videos are turned off, and this is obviously to avoid any background interference, and you can ask questions through the Q&A function, which we'll try and answer. We have a video to begin with. The video is on the marble industry, which is part of the natural stone industry in Rajasthan, and illustrates many of the problems that's faced in the natural stone industry there. So Prabina, would you like to show the video?
Sure.
That that little video was taken in 2011, a decade ago. I think the tragedy is that the situation hasn't really changed that much. This last year, the US Department of Labor listed Rajasthan sandstone as a good that's produced by child and forced labor. And in their listing, they show or record that there are reports of children aged 6 to 17 producing sandstone in India with widespread, without protective equipment, with widespread occupational exposure to dust and noise, and examples of forced labor as well. And it really asks the question is, what is it that we need to do so that these things don't simply continue. And we may have some hope from the EU legislative report on corporate due diligence and corporate accountability, which was published on the 10th of March, which in its draft directive says that there are a number of things that companies, states, and CSOs, civil society organizations, can do. So just briefly, a due diligence strategy, a stakeholder engagement, grievance mechanisms, extrajudicial remedies, and sectoral plans, which could push things forward. As we're running out of time is short because we started late. Let me then turn to Joshita Nag from Mines Labour Protection Campaign, who will talk for 10 or 15 minutes on the experience of Mines Labour Protection Campaign in relation to their work. Joshita?
Thank you so much, sir. It's an honor to be here. And good afternoon, everyone. And I'm Joshita Nag. I'm from Mine Labour Protection Campaign Trust. A little introduction to MLPC Trust. MLPC started off as a campaign in 1994. It was steered by a committee of activists, lawyers, environmentalists. We started off under the patronage of late Shri Justice Iyer, Krishna Iyer. He's a renowned person, and he really believed in the cause, and thus gave patronage to the campaign. Now, in the form of campaign, MLPC functioned for quite a while, and then in 2007, it got registered as a non-profit in the form of a trust, and since then we've functioned in that format. Since the inception of the campaign itself, the focus has been on securing the rights of mine workers. Very early on in the campaign, it was realized that there are some core issues that need to be addressed for us to be able to address all the related issues. So like sir was saying, that there is rampant child labor and all kinds of violations are happening in this industry vis-a-vis the workers. And the underlying cause that MLPC has identified is something that I want to talk about today. So today we're all here at this forum to discuss largely the experiences of the South Asian community vis-a-vis business and human rights, right? That is the larger idea. And I think one of the common underlying factors for such a platform is to assert the need for such a platform, that as the South Asian community, our experiences are very different from the rest of the world, and it needs its own platform and it needs its own identity to be able to put forward the concerns. Now, borrowing from that feeling, to which I hope all of us will be able to relate, I would like to explain how mine workers have no identity of their own. So mine workers are the backbone of this industry, and it is on their blood and sweat that so much money is being earned. The revenue is very high in mining industry that we all already are aware of. And there are no formal records of an employee-employer relationship between a mine worker and the lessees of mining. And this in turn means that they don't have a formal identity that any industry workers, any workers anywhere should be having, which secures a number of rights, starting from safety at workplace to sexual exploitation to child labor. These are all issues that are cropping from the lack of identity of mine workers. So why is this happening? Why are mine workers kept deprived of their own identity? So to give you an overview of how mining industry is working in Rajasthan, the state, we have two governments here at a central level as well as a state level. So the government of Rajasthan, which is the state level, is responsible for mining and all the revenue that generates out of mining, and all the stones that come out of mining are under the state government. However, the workers themselves fall under the Ministry of Labor and Employment, which is under the central government. So the laborers are under the jurisdiction of the center, while the revenue is under the jurisdiction of the state. Now, this is causing a lot of damage to the workers because there is no coordination between these two levels. The lack of coordination means a lack of compliance. A lack of compliance of what? There are legal provisions already in place to secure the workers' rights and their identity. The legal provisions provide for mandatory registrations, to provide a safe working environment, to provide protective equipment. COVID-19 has shown us how we're all so serious about PPE kits, but they've already existed in the legal provisions for mine workers for decades, but they're not provided with the same. They're not given safe work environments, and God forbid something happens, because like the video showed, they work in such hazardous conditions. Accidents and deaths are an everyday matter, in fact. Only last week, we've lost 3 workers in Bhilwara district uh, at a mining site. So there is a lack of compliance of the Mines Act, especially the provisions that relate to the workers. And there is very flimsy political will to actually implement those provisions. Now, when we're talking about clean stones and responsible mining and business and human rights, looking at the entire supply chain, these are the discussions that we're having at such platforms. We, from MLPC, we can tell you that you can rest assured that the entire supply chain of the mining sector is full of gross human rights violations. There is child labor, there is gender-based exploitation, very hard working conditions, only one leave in the entire month, and so on and so forth. However, across the supply chain, these violations, to address in a sustainable manner, we have to involve and keep the state accountable. Now, the state government as well as the central government have to come together and create a mechanism to implement what already exists in the law. There's no new legal provisions needed. We need to implement what's already there, and only then can we secure the rights of the mine workers, is what MLPC has been advocating for quite a long time. Around more than a decade ago, MLPC was, while working with the mine workers, realized a lot of mine workers were dying very early on. And then, with some more investigation, it seemed that they were dying out of tuberculosis. And some like a deeper investigation, they realized that while TB was curable, why were mine workers dying? And the answer was they were not dying out of tuberculosis, they were dying out of a misdiagnosis, because what they actually had was silicosis. Now, then onwards, it was a long journey for the campaign to keep asserting the need to address this huge problem that was silicosis. Thousands of workers were dying, widows were left behind in huge amounts of debt, and eventually the Supreme Court passed a verdict saying that the next of kin should be compensated if a worker is dying out of silicosis. From then to today, in 2019, Rajasthan has the country's first and so far the only policy on pneumocinosis, and it offers compensation to victims as well as next of kin. But the problem is that silicosis is only one part of the problem. What MLPC has been advocating for and what MLPC has recognized, along with other eminent people in the field who've been working for securing right of mine workers, is that this problem would not have become so big if we were able to address the real root cause, which is the identity of the mine workers. Now, if we compare it across other industries, whether it's construction workers, factory workers, or unemployment schemes like Narega in India, all workers have their identity. And only from that identity comes security, comes health insurance, comes scholarship for their children, and thus a number of human rights violations are addressed. And then the businesses are clean, the businesses are accountable, the businesses are sustainable and responsible. So what we want to put forward in this platform today is that there is a need uh, to create pressure, to advocate, and to keep engaging with the state and the central government to ensure that there is complete compliance of the legal provisions that provide for the identity of the mine workers. Now, how this would be done is through various strategies. We're in conversations with the state Human Rights Commission, whose chairperson Justice Vyas is here with us today, has already taken cognizance of a complaint put forward by MLPC. And hopefully, in the upcoming months, we will see some good action, and we will be able to secure the right of mine workers. Because, like Sir was saying, in the last decade, and in fact, in the last 5 or 10 decades, the situation hasn't changed because the root cause is not being addressed. So, yeah, thank you so much for hearing us.
Thank you very much, Jyoshita. And in fact, when we're looking at silicosis, the recognition of silicosis in mine workers in Rajasthan dates back to 1955. And yet we're seeing on the questionnaire that we did, on the baseline survey that we did, nearly 50% of mine workers have silicosis. And that was in 2019. So the prevalence of silicosis has been there, notwithstanding recognition, for over 60 years. But I think Mr. Justice Vyas is having some problems joining. But before he joins, I was wondering, Jyoshita, whether you had any thoughts about whether the attitude of business, that is, foreign businesses and Indian businesses, has, in MLPC's experience, changed or moved? Is there now more of a recognition to doing business which is sustainable, which is somehow compliant with human rights, or is the attitude still, let's make as much money as quickly as possible without whatever the consequences?
So the domestic market is still very much, let's make as much money as possible, whether it's the pandemic or full on heavy mining is going on, violating all kind of rules. But what we're also seeing is, if the international market takes cognizance and looks into supply chains and kind of takes all this seriously, then it automatically pressurizes the domestic markets to up their game. So, for example, not in vis-a-vis human rights and workers, but vis-a-vis environment, all the compliances that are currently, at least on paper, being followed, and the kind of sanctions that they need to take before they start operating the mines from the pollution control board, etc., is being taken seriously. So there has been a shift of attitude in one domain, and so it is probably ground enough to believe that it is possible to have that same kind of shift when it comes to workers. And if we are able to comply in cases of environment compliances, we should be able to do that for workers as well. And if the international market, like you're saying with the European legislation, does take business and human rights and the entire supply chain seriously, then I think it will automatically, forcefully or willingly, bring a shift in the domestic market.
Okay. The Rajasthan natural stone industry isn't sort of unique in the fact that only a small percentage of Rajasthan natural stone is exported. Most of it is for domestic market. So I think it's less than 10%. It's around 7 or 8% of Rajasthan natural stone is actually exported to the European Union, to the US, and to the UK. And indeed, there was a recent study done by the American Bar Association about that export and about what the US government should be doing in relation to its companies. Do you think that even with only a small percentage of the sandstone being exported, that the companies who import that sandstone can actually put an influence that would actually improve, have a wider effect in relation to the Rajasthan sandstone industry, natural stone industry?
Yes, I really do believe that, because even though the percentage is small, these are global players we're talking about, and there's an international image that the country wants to uphold. And there's also a state versus center dynamic, and elections are they keep happening either at a state or a central level, right? So the state elections are due in another year. So when, even if one international buyer takes up this issue and it does catch attention of other international players, like say for example this forum or United Nations in general, it will create an international pressure, hopefully, that addresses the domestic market. So even if the international market and the percentage of export is relatively smaller, it probably has the potential, in my opinion, to create a ripple effect in terms of the international image that India wants to have. I mean, nobody wants to be on the list of state of labor US department and saying that we have a huge percentage of human rights violation. So it doesn't matter if we have only 1% of stones being exported to, even 1% being exported to US. We would not want to be on the list for perception concerns, image concerns, because it's a very bad place to be in. It's a very shameful experience to have. I mean, why should we be on that list? India has such great potential. So I think for those reasons, more than the percentage, it probably can have a ripple effect, is my understanding.
Brilliant. That's really interesting. One of the things that Joshita was very too modest to say is really MLPC's success in getting the pneumocanosis set up, a new pneumocanosis board in Rajasthan set up. The pneumocanosis board in Rajasthan is something that was on statute in law for some time, but wasn't enforced, wasn't activated. And through campaigning with the state's Human Rights Commission, they got it set up, and now there are 10,000 people who've been diagnosed. Over 10,000 people have been diagnosed with silicosis and either have or are awaiting compensation. And this is a model I think that could be replicated around the country and also in other countries in relation to occupational diseases. I was wondering if Mr. Justice VS was online, what would you want to tell him in relation to what you think that the state's Human Rights Commission, he's very new in post, he's only been in post for a month or so.
Yeah.
What would you want the state's Human Rights Commission, what are the priorities of the state's Human Rights Commission in relation to the Rajasthan natural stone industry?
So, although he's been here only for a few months, he's already quite active and has taken cognizance of one of our complaints, like I said. So, if I was able to use this platform to push the agenda, I would definitely request him to form a working committee on the issue of lack of compliance and lack of coordination between the two governments that is causing so many violations. And I think under his chairmanship, if such a committee is formed, we will be able to address the problem in a very sustainable, very systematic, legally sound manner, because he comes with a plethora of experience himself. So I think this is the time under his leadership we should be able to create a working group or a committee that can really push this to its root cause analysis. I think that's something I would request him.
Thanks. I mean, one of the big problems is, isn't it, that the mines don't keep lists of the workers.
Right.
And so it's very difficult for workers to then take action against mine owners.
Yes.
Not a single case has been filed in the lower courts by any. I mean, Rajasthan has nearly 3 million mine workers.
Yes, and it's just an interesting fact that we were in the process of filing some RTIs, the Right to Information, under the Right to Information Act, and we've asked the central government, because workers fall under them, how many workers do you have registered? And the numbers are somewhere around 40,000 or something for the entire state of Rajasthan. So yeah, it's where 3 million and 40,000. They don't have any.
So the center only has 40,000 workers registered with them.
Yes, and one of the bodies of the center, in fact, even said that we don't keep such records. So
Wow.
yeah, it's pathetic.
So nearly 3 million workers are invisible.
Yes.
That's terrible. And no wonder, I mean, literally invisible, and invisible in terms of any protection of their rights. So that's really terrible. We have one question which we could answer from Piyush Kumar. And he says compliances also have limitations. Certifications and such compliances leads to showcasing what needs to be seen by the evaluator. Facts are much different than what is demonstrated during compliance audit. Any experience in this, and what should be the way forward? I think that's a very common problem, isn't it, Joshita? That some of these companies, whether it be Indian companies or overseas companies, are now relying upon these auditors, and there are a number of auditors in the Rajasthan mining industry, which certify stone as being free from child labor, free from forced labor. And you can see in Rajasthan, if you obviously you live there, but you see in Rajasthan, for people who haven't been there, stone which says sustainably and ethically sourced.
Yes.
I mean, this is a problem, right? I mean, you have these auditors who simply rubber stamp this stone without properly verifying. And what would you suggest? I mean, first of all, I mean, is there any truth in any of this?
Yes, there is quite a bit of truth actually. It's true that you show what you want to show just to get the certificate. But two facets of this, I think one is whom are they actually evaluating? The entire supply chain is anyway still not being looked at. Currently, whatever compliance is happening, whatever certification is happening, especially in terms of export, is only happening with the end exporter, the last person on the supply chain, who's anyway going to be able to show that it's ethically and clean sourced. And we're not looking at the entire source from right from where the stone was taken out. So we're not looking at the entire chain evaluating. Second, only when I have a supply of water can I complain about the quality of water. Currently, I think most compliances are not happening. So the first step is to push for those to happen, and then second would be to strengthen the mechanism, and hopefully we'll be able to push for strengthening while happening at the first place. But currently compliances are not happening in the first place, so strengthening only will happen once it starts happening.
Right. I mean, what is if you're, okay, so the pandemic, we realized that something needs to change as a company. We can't carry on like this. And we have all sorts of other issues because Rajasthan's also affected by climate change. It's also affected by all sorts of other important issues. What, as a company, do you feel that they should do in order to ensure that they're operating as ethically as possible in this situation?
I think you're asking in context of European companies?
Oh, yeah, any company.
Okay. So for domestic companies, I think the pressure has to come from the state mechanism. It has to be forced from the government, because we're not seeing any will in the domestic market to do it on their own. Now the factors behind that are quite a few, like complicated and mixed factors, because there's a factor of caste, there's a factor of class, there's a factor of plain market. So a number of factors why they are not doing it on. I think we have Justice Vyas with us.
Yes. Sir, can you hear me? Mr. Justice Vyas, can you hear me? We can't hear you, sir.
It's not.
But can you hear us? Maybe you're on mute. Yes. Can you hear us, sir?
Yes, yes.
Sir,
Can
do
you
you
hear
want
me
to,
also?
because we're running out of time, do you want to say something about what you think the state should do in relation to the human rights violations and environmental violations in the Rajasthan natural stone industry? He's gone. Oh, sir, are you there?
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Sir, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, on what subject? On environment, the human right violation?
Yes, sir.
We are not.
We don't have much time.
Voice of,
Yes. Well, why don't
we
you
are
say
not.
what you would do, sir?
Voice of madam. Your voice is not. We are not hearing your voice.
You can't
Madam's
hear.
voice. Yes, now.
Hello, sir. Good
Yes,
afternoon.
yes, yes.
Yes, sir. So we are here to hear you speak on the matter of mine workers and the entire business and human rights angle. What do you think should be done?
In Rajasthan, we are having a number of the different minerals also, and mining operation is going on. And according to government policy, the license queries are issued uh, at various places like Makrana and Bhilwara, Bikaner. Gypsum is also available, and this stone is also available at Jodhpur, Keru. But silicosis is a very big problem for those workers working in the mining area, and the compensation is to be paid, is required to be paid by the foundation which is established in the different district of Rajasthan state. But due to the communication gap and knowledge of policies and schemes, they are not getting the compensation and treatment of medical treatment also. Although the government is providing all facilities are available, but due to inaction on the part of officers and executives, they are not getting the due the compensation or whatever medical facilities available for their treatment. And wages are also less wages they are getting, but minimum wages act is applicable upon them. But mining and the owners, they are not providing the required minimum wages. Therefore, we are receiving so many complaints from various the employees of mining operation, working in mining operation, and there are plenty. And the number of applications are pending here also in the before the competent authority of payment of wages authorities. This is the big problem, that their standard is not in good order.
And so, well, what would you suggest that the state does in order to protect Indian citizens?
And in my opinion, there must be some disciplinary action against those persons who are not executing the policies. I'm not hearing you. What is not visible now? Your voice is not visible now.
We can hear
will
you, so
speak
carry
few.
on. Please,
We can
please
hear
carry
you.
on.
Yes, my suggestion is that the officers are required to perform their duties with zeal. But here, I can say, because before the appointment as chairman of this Human Rights Commission, I was I was working as judge of Rajasthan High Court, where discipline was necessary. Here I'm watching that the employees are not doing their job with zeal, and they are very negligent towards their work. And due to that, policies are there, the schemes are there, government is providing funds also for them. But due to inaction on the part of the authorities, they are not getting their fruits. Therefore, I will suggest government, and I will send letters also to the government authorities to establish an independent agency for providing all relief to those persons.
And so one of the main issues that Joshita was talking about is the fact that the laws,
there is no flow in laws. Laws and schemes also. They are for welfare of the employees and for welfare of the labor working in the mining area. There are so many industrial dispute act is there. The minimum wages act is there. The payment of wages authorities are there. The for medical facilities, there are schemes also there. The compensation they are getting, but due to the lack of information and due to the proper guidance to them, they are not able to get their whatever right they are having, being a citizen and a labor.
And how do you think the state should enforce the laws, sir?
The commitment must be there. The officers are also there. They are getting their salary. They are getting huge amount, but they don't want to work. This is very big problem for not only for the mining owners, but other persons also in the welfare department, in the Industrial Disputes Act. The authorities appointed in the Disputes Act, they are required to perform their duties with G. It is my opinion, because laws are very good. The parliament has enacted very good law, but implementation is not proper.
So we
I
look
am on
forward.
a post. I am on a post which relates to human rights only. But for execution of laws in the mining areas, it is in the hands of other authorities.
Right. We've had.
What about your situation? You are having good the number of officers there for implementation of these laws. Have you good laws there in England?
Well, so the situation is completely different, and we, you know, there's not much mining here in the UK at all. But so your voice is we can't hear your voice very well. Are you on mute or
my voice?
Yeah, no.
No. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. Your voice is. I can hear you.
So perhaps you could just tell the audience what you intend to do in the next 6 months, and how long is your post, sir, and what you intend to do in the next 6 months.
My intention is to decide the applications which is submitted by the authority, by the mining labor, and I will issue certain direction to the government also for proper execution of laws by the authorities concerned.
I see.
Because I am not having, this Human Rights Commission is not having teeth. We are not having teeth. We have no power to take disciplinary action against them, or we can pass any order or any compensation. We can pass an order for compensation, but again, it is in the hand of the secretaries of the state government.
Yes, so you only have recommendatory powers.
Only.
We have another question from Piyush Kumar. I hope you can hear my voice. He says that Haryana factory rules have mandated a display of several welfare schemes in each factory. Similarly, such displays should be mandated in the mines regarding the rules to be known by the mine workers in relation to their rights. So in other words, what he is saying is that one of the big problems, and this is exactly what we found out when we did our survey, one of the big problems is that the mine workers don't know their rights. They're absolutely not aware of what their rights are under law. And
one more important thing is there, that less education is there. The workers are not educated persons.
They're not educated, sir. And I'm wondering whether what could be done to ensure that they know about their rights or have access to complaints mechanisms. What do you feel that could be done in relation to educating them more about their rights?
In the license, we can put a note or a condition. We can, the state government put a condition or a note that on monthly basis they should give reports that all the schemes were brought to the notice of the laborers, and their problems were solved out by us. It is necessary, it must be made necessary for the owners of the mining, so as to get information from them what type of facilities are available to the laborers working in the mining areas.
So I was wondering what
my
your view
suggestion
might be on this question. We were supposed to be joined today by Elaine Mitchell-Hill, who is works for a British company, Marshalls.
Yeah.
Marshalls
Yeah.
Import stone to the United Kingdom, and there are a number of other companies that import stone. So we can't, for some reason, we can't hear you. But if you can let me finish my question. So we can't hear you. I think there's some problem with the internet.
No. What type of reply you require now?
I'm asking you, what if she was here as a company representing a company that imports natural sandstone into the UK? What would you say to her in relation to what they could do to improve the situation in Rajasthan?
That one very big problem is population. You see, in the year 1947, we were only 35 crores. Now 135 crores. So this is a big problem for country, and the facilities are less, and the employees are the large number of employees are working in mining area. There's no employment, but they are required to do for meager amount also.
But so obviously that's an issue, population and all the rest of it. But if you're a company, whether you're in India or outside India, what do you think you can do to promote legal and human rights compliance and environment compliant business? This is, after all, we're talking about business and human rights.
So I will perform my duty, and my commission will perform the duty with confidence. But it is for the state authorities, because the rules and regulations and the schemes are required to be framed by the government, and the implementation is also in their hands. But we can compel them to do so and to provide assistance to the employees.
But where like in Rajasthan, the state is not doing its job, unfortunately, in enforcing the good laws that you have said they exist and do exist in Rajasthan. What can a business do? What can a business do, sir, in order to promote, in order to ensure that they're operating sustainably?
Government is providing all facilities, including funds also. But authorities, they are not doing. The executors they are not doing. The mining, the owners of the mining, the mines, they are not doing so. And we are having funds. We are having schemes.
And do you think that my businesses can actually
We can't hear voice of ma'am now.
Well, ma'am is
anything.
Please, we were just listening to you, sir. But I think your video and your sound is cutting out.
Yeah, it's not aligned, huh?
It's not.
It is also a very big problem because it's very old computer is here.
Oh. Sorry, Krishnendra sir, I couldn't understand what you said.
Do you want to say anything else before we close?
Not really. I just want to know from Justice sir, what should, according to him, be the role of non-state actors, say like MLPC or any other alliances, any other organizations? How do you think we can play a role to secure the rights of mine workers?
You are required to go to the field now. While sitting
Yes,
in
sir.
drawing room, you cannot solve the problem.
Yes, sir. We're on the field. Any inputs for us?
Because it is a problem of the labors, not the officers or the employees, which can be solved in the drawing rooms. We must have to go, the authorities must have to go in the field and see their problems and the situation in which they are living.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Absolutely. Well, sir, let us close the session now. We were expecting Elaine Mitchell-Hill from Marshalls, but thank you both for attending.
Okay.
Sir,
We are
thank you.
also thankful to you.
Not at all, sir.
Healthy discussions are
Thank
there.
you for attending. I know you've had difficulties, technical problems in attending. Thank you very much, Joshita.
Thank
That's
you.
really great that you managed. We're really grateful that you managed to step into Rana's shoes very quickly. So thank you very much. And
Thank you. Okay.
Justice sir is saying something.
Yes.
Sorry, sir, we couldn't hear you. Could you please repeat?
No. I'm only asking that give your suggestions or your opinion now.
So I already spoke about it before in the beginning of the session, and I was talking about what you said, the lack of coordination between the state and the central government. How mining is under state, but workers are under central, and both are not moving towards the other. It's just deflecting blame on one another, saying this is not mine to do, this is not mine to do. And ultimately, workers are suffering. And workers are suffering because they don't have a formal identity, so they're not being able to claim what already exists in the law. Like you rightfully said, sir, there's no need to change the law, just to implement it. But it's not being done, and workers are the only cost
in
is
our
being.
Rajasthan.
Yes, sir.
In our Rajasthan, one kavat is there. The people used to say, "Seek sarirong diya lage dom." Whatever, if a person wants to do something, do it for the poor persons.
Yes.
हम तो तनख्वाह काट रहे हैं लोगों की.
सही बात.
And I think that's a good point to end, sir. Thank you very much, both of you, and I'm sure LPC will be coming to your office very soon.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we close the session, Prabina?
Thank you, sir.